I'm talking here about a paradox of working with computers. It's inspired by a semi-dream that I had last night, stewing over the past. And what I was thinking was, if you go back a fair way, you don't have to go back too far. If you go back 50 years ago, you've got people like I was working as a computer operator at NCR then, and you've got computers very tiny by today's standards. I can't remember the size of it. It may have been 40. I think it came in modules of 40 kilobytes or something like that. So it's two of these computers take up a whole room. And I think there are a number of tape units there. I can't remember how, magnetic tape. And what you think about is a terrible amount of effort to be running jobs, because you've got to be changing tapes. And there are even other devices more formidable than magnetic tapes to use. There was a deck of cards, magnetic cards, which would be dropped. Unfortunately, that would often jam. So it was quite labour intensive. But what I was thinking about is that not many people there are actually doing computer programming. You've got a class of people there writing computer programs, and you've got another group of people who are checking the results that come out, and maybe they're fixing them up in some way by running more data. I don't know. Maybe they're making do with a program that doesn't quite work, and say the intent of the program is to maintain a file, to read transactions and to maintain a master file. Well, maybe depending on the results they get from the run, maybe they were putting in extra. Maybe they were putting in extra transaction, another run for a new run, putting in transactions to fix up problems that hadn't quite been fixed because of bugs in the program. I'm just thinking it's quite possible that a person could operate like that. Maybe that's how they did work, because you might have more than one way of doing the job, and therefore if something doesn't work, you could just have some ad hoc way of making a change. I'm not certain if that's what they were doing, but there were a number of people inspecting the work, and probably perhaps as many as the number of computer programmers, I'm not sure, but a number anyway. Also computer operators. And I'm thinking, if a person's knowledgeable about writing computer code, well, they would have opportunities to do so. But what you have is some kind of very tightly structured society with people working, and often you'll find that the work being done doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll just give you an allegory. I was working at a place over 40 years ago, and we were there to replace the IBM system by a Burroughs system, which meant an enormous amount of work in testing programs. And because of that, some of us were invited to work at night, so that you could be working on like a double shift, you might say. Some people working at night, some people working during the day, and the ones working during the day were probably working extra hours, probably working about 10 hours a day, and then the ones working at night are probably working about 10 hours a day as well. I can't quite remember the hours, but they decided to build a kitchen for the Burroughs people who were working at night. They didn't want to share a kitchen with IBM, or the IBM people didn't want to share a kitchen with them. So they built a little kitchen. They actually built the kitchen in the women's toilet. They took over the women's toilet, and they would have redone it as a kitchen. Then they had to build a women's toilet, so they did that in the stairwell. And then, of course, that was against fire regulations, so they had to have stairs going between I don't know what they had to provide, whether the stairs to the next floor up or the next floor down, I can't remember. But anyway, the fact that the stairwell had been taken over, they had to replace that by a stair going between 2 floors. And that was done by seeking advice from the structural engineers that it was safe to cut through the concrete floor of the 9-storey building to make another little stairwell. So the little stairwell was just required to go through 2 floors. It didn't have to go the whole 9 floors. I thought that's probably a metaphor for a lot of terrible things that go on in business, not necessarily computer area. So the problem, I think, if you're working in a government department, is you might come in with a tremendous amount of knowledge about things to do, and maybe unless you're adopting some kind of very tactical strategy, you're going to find yourself unused. You're not going to be used profitably because you're not going to be given profitable work to do. So I'm just guessing that that's the situation, that a lot of the work that's being done has got very, very little value or interest for someone who actually has knowledge about how to write computer code.